And why don't you grab that buck and hold it up to the camera so if anybody's watching the video one can see that.
Uh, yeah, he's this point here is a little over 13 inches, and this one here is almost 13. And of course, these his G3s are both over 10 inches. His main beams are right around 26, and he's got almost 38 inches of mass. So
Oh,
for a Virginia whitetail, they just don't get much better than that. And
no.
just the way his main beams curve in toward each other, he's just a beautiful deer. And which is why I named him Dreamcatcher, because I couldn't have drawn up a more perfect buck. That he's the buck of my dreams. That was a pretty much 42 years or seasons in the making. We all want to kill big deer, but I've always wanted to kill one of the absolute top end deer for the state. Something in the 1 or 2% percentile range, and for here, that's always been 150 or better. I've gotten close in the past, and but that's just a 150-inch buck. Inches doesn't mean anything, but I just feel like it really represents the top end mountain whitetail, and so over the past few years, that's kind of what I've been striving to do is find that kind of or caliber of a buck to hunt, and I've been able to find those kind of deer. It's taken a lot of work, but and this year I was able to accomplish that goal, and with actually about 20 inches to spare. So
I know. Yeah, that, and I can't wait to see it in person because looking at it, the one thing that, even measurements don't account for is the mass on the tines. Like
yeah,
that, if you did the whatever type of measurement scale where you put it in water, the water
yep,
disbursement, like I
yep,
feel like that would score extremely high because it's
yeah.
just carries it out from the beams all the way up the tines. I don't know if I've ever seen a deer like that completely all the way through.
Yeah, yeah, it's very unusual, even for a lot of places, but especially here in Virginia. A lot of people that look at it, they say, "Where did you get this?" They think Canada, and I'm
Yeah,
like, "No, right here in Southwest Virginia." So
yeah, yeah.
it just shows, that what age can do for the right buck. Not all of them are capable of doing that, but you get just the right buck that reaches, the right age, and that's what they look like. So
Yeah, and what how old do you think that deer was?
I think he was only 5.5.
Really?
Yes. And the reason is that's what he looks like to me. I've got a couple years of history with him. Um, And after I killed him, some other guys came forward and said that they had been hunting him for about 3 years. And just based on what he jumped from last year, I think that he's 5. He could be 6, but I would be surprised if he was. And to be honest with you, our bucks, I've noticed here in the mountains, generally don't top out till they're between the 6 and 8 year old range. So he could have put on, several more inches over the next couple of years, So
Oh, why didn't you
yeah,
wait, Nathan?
yeah,
I'm just kidding. Oh,
yeah,
but that's amazing. I mean, that it's the same way here in Pennsylvania and the areas I hunt. Like I feel like they can go. I mean, that buck my dad shot a few years ago. I can't remember if he was 7 or 8, but he was at the biggest that he ever was at that time. And I've seen it, and it seems like after that they start to go
yeah,
downhill and sometimes pretty fast as far as from an inches standpoint. But that is impressive. I mean, I would have thought that deer was older just from the rack itself. Honestly, I don't know if I even looked at the pictures of the body because I was just kind of focused on the rack of
yeah,
them.
yeah. He's in the 5 to 6 year old range, but I really think that he's just 5. I'm going to have him aged, and see what he is. I'm going to do both tooth wear and the where you send off the front teeth. I think it's called Cinium.
Yes, Senum annuli or something.
Yeah, something like that. So I'm going to do both and see what he turns up there. But I feel like he's going to be 5. So
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. And so you said that you knew about him for 3 years?
2 years.
2
Yep.
years. Okay.
Uh, it's kind of unique where this deer lived, which is part of why I think that he which really and truly I don't see 5-year-old as being that old of a deer. I think that it's kind of the entryway into the mature side, but he lived in a spot that most people that if they were coming in there hunting, they would walk right past him. And actually, I did, for a few seasons. And but yeah, he lived very, very close to a hardtop road.
Okay. That okay. So that's why you're saying that you think people would walk past him just because he.
Yeah, yeah, just because the most hardcore hunters in my area and most everywhere else, the first thing they do when they're looking at uh, topo or when they get out of the vehicle, they're going to go as far as they can go, and usually that's a minimum of 1 mile,
Mhm.
and around here that could be 2 or 3 miles, or more, just depending on where they're at. But this deer, at no time that I have evidence of, was he ever more than a half a mile from Hardtop Road, and he
Really?
actually paralleled it. And I don't mind to talk about this now that he's dead, you
Yeah.
know, but he part of his home range actually extended over onto some private land, and but the majority of it was on national forest, which is where I was hunting.
Yeah.
But I had been hunting this area for several years, and uh, I think the first time that I actually found evidence of him, and it could have been another deer actually. So that there might have been another deer in there before him, but it's been probably 3 years ago. I was in there shed hunting, and on my way back to the truck, I just took a different route than I would normally take, and I was very close to the truck, and I started seeing some pretty impressive sign that made me feel like that there must be a good deer there. So I think that was in 2021, and then 2022. I was hunting deeper back in this area, and on my way back to the truck, that this was probably early black powder season, which would have been early November. I decided to walk through that area, and I come upon some more good sized rubs in that area. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to put out a camera right here and just see what it is. And I did. And whenever I come back and check the camera, which was around the end of November, I was shocked at what I had, and it was of course him. And at that time, he was 160-inch deer, and so I hunted him the rest of that season, which wasn't very much because by then I didn't have any more vacation left, and I was just basically hunting weekends. So I didn't have that much time to hunt him. So season came and went. I didn't see him, but I was getting pictures of him. And once season went out, I kept rolling my trail cameras, and I run them on video mode mostly and on scrapes. So when season went out, I could just kept my cameras running, and I waited for him to shed. And once he did, then I spent a lot of time looking for his antlers. Matter of fact, I had right around 60 miles in before I found that first one, which that's the only one I found was just that one. But and it was right where I expected it to be. Matter of fact, I had walked by that antler on 2 or 3 occasions, but I was, it was a really big antler. I was expecting it to be, laying either. If I knew if it was tines up, it would be easy to spot. If it was tines down, it should be easy to spot too, because the way his main beams curve, you should see that um, the curvature of the beam, gets the forced floor. But just so happened the points are so heavy on it that it actually laid flat, so it was really hard to see. But I had walked
Oh,
by it several times, and uh, but anyway, I thought that antler has to be in this one area, or I felt like it, and I thought I'm gonna make one more swipe through there, and I did, and sure enough, there it was. And so, but during the time that I was looking for his sheds, I was looking closely at all the rubs that I had found, and also running my cameras on video mode. I was able to identify his droppings from all the other deer in the area because I watched him use the bathroom in that one scrape, and whenever I seen that, I went immediately to that pile of droppings, and sure enough, it was very distinct. So while I'm in there shed hunting, I'm looking at the droppings, I'm looking at the rubs and stuff, and I was able to identify and put together pretty much where he was and where he wasn't. And so once spring green up come, I pretty much was done scouting him. And then this summer, I started running my cameras again, trying to, just pretty much verify that he was still alive and what he looked like. And I started out with my cameras on scrapes because we all know that now that, they like to use scrapes year round, not necessarily the ground, but, the licking branch. But I didn't pick him up until I actually checked the camera. I think it was end of June, 1st of July, somewhere through there, and he wasn't on the scrape. And I always called it his favorite scrape because that's the one he was, using a whole lot during November, December, and even up into January. And so I moved the camera to a trail. It was a side hill trail that was above that scrape that I found a lot of his rubs and stuff on. And I left the camera there for, I don't know, about 3 or 4 weeks and went back and checked it. And I got video of him. And man, he was just enormous. Where he was in velvet, you could tell that he was going to be, close to a Boone and Crockett animal. And so my obsession started, pretty much with that.